Welcome to Snoozecast, the podcast designed to help you fall asleep. Find us on snoozecast.com and follow us on Instagram @snoozecast to find behind-the-scenes content. If you enjoy our show, please write a review on the podcast app. Also, share us with a friend. If you'd like to get an email once a week with upcoming sleep stories and other news, subscribe to the Snoozeletter at snoozecast.com. This episode is brought to you by our Patreon supporters and by Shooting Stars. Tonight, we'll read the next part to The Princess and the Goblin, a children's fantasy novel published in 1872. If you'd like to start from the beginning, the first episode aired on April 15th, 2019. If you'd like to listen to the previous episode, it aired November 6th, 2020. One of the most successful and beloved of Victorian fairy tales, George Macdonald's The Princess and the Goblin, tells the story of young Princess Irene and her friend Curdie, who must outwit the threatening goblins who live in caves beneath her mountain home. When we left off, Princess Irene found her way back to her mysterious great-great-great-great-grandmother after she couldn't sleep due to an injury from pricking her finger earlier in the day. Let's get cozy. Close your eyes. Relax your body into the softness of your bed. Now, take a few deep breaths. The old lady smiled a sweet smile and said to Princess Irene, "I'm not vexed with you, my child, nor with your nursemaid Ludi either, but I don't want you to say anything more to Ludi about me. If she should ask you, you must just be silent, but I do not think she will ask you." All the time they talked, the old lady kept on spinning. "You haven't told me yet what I am spinning," she said. "Because I don't know. It's very pretty stuff." It was indeed very pretty stuff. There was a good bunch of it on the distaff attached to the spinning wheel, and in the moonlight it shone like, what shall I say it was like? It was not white enough for silver. Yes, it was like silver, but shone gray rather than white, and glittered only a little. And the thread the old lady drew out from it was so fine that Irene could hardly see it. "I am spinning this for you, my child." "For me? What am I to do with it, please?" "I will tell you by and by. But first I will tell you what it is. It is spider web of a particular kind. My pigeons bring it to me from over the great sea. There's only one forest where the spiders live who make this particular kind, the finest and strongest of any. I have nearly finished my present job. What is on the rock now will be enough. I have a week's worth there yet, though," she added, looking at the bunch. "Do you work all day and all night, too, great-great-great-great-grandmother?" said the princess, thinking to be very polite with so many greats. I am not quite so great as all that, she answered, smiling almost merrily. If you call me grandmother, that'll do. No, I don't work every night, only moonlit nights. And then no longer than the moon shines upon my wheel. I shan't work much longer tonight. And what will you do next, grandmother? Go to bed? Would you like to see my bedroom? Yes, that I should. Then I think I won't work any longer tonight. I shall be in good time. The old lady rose and left her wheel standing just as it was. You see, there was no good in putting it away, for where there was not any furniture, there was no danger of being untidy. Then she took Irene by the hand, but it was her bad hand, and Irene gave a little cry of pain. My child, said her grandmother, what is the matter? Irene held her hand into the moonlight that the old lady might see it, and told her all about it, at which she looked grave. But she only said, Give me your other hand, and, having led her out upon the dark little landing, opened the door on the opposite side of it. What was Irene's surprise to see the loveliest room she had ever seen in her life. It was large and lofty and dome-shaped. From the center hung a lamp as round as a ball, shining as if with the brightest moonlight, which made everything visible in the room, though not so clearly that the princess could tell what many of the things were. A large oval bed stood in the middle, with a coverlid of rose color and velvet curtains all round it of a lovely pale blue. The walls were also blue, spangled all over with what looked like stars of silver. The old lady left her and, going to a strange-looking cabinet, opened it and took out a curious silver casket. Then she sat down on a low chair and, calling Irene, made her kneel before her while she looked at her hand. Having examined it, she opened the casket and took from it a little ointment. The sweetest odor filled the room, like that of roses and lilies, and she rubbed the ointment gently all over the hot, swollen hand. Her touch was so pleasant and cool that it seemed to drive away the pain and heat wherever it came. Oh, grandmother, it is so nice, said Irene. Thank you, thank you. Then the old lady went to a chest of drawers and took out a large handkerchief of gossamer-like fabric, which she tied round her hand. I don't think I can let go of you tonight, she said. Would you like to sleep with me? Oh, yes, yes, dear grandmother, said Irene, and would have clapped her hands, forgetting that she could not. You won't be afraid, then, to go to bed with such an old woman? No. You are so beautiful, grandmother. But I am very old. And I suppose I am very young. You won't mind sleeping with such a very young woman, grandmother? You sweet little princess, said the old lady, and drew her towards her, and kissed her on the forehead and the cheek. Then she got a large silver basin, and having poured some water into it, made Irene sit on the chair and washed her feet. This done, she was ready for bed. And oh, what a delicious bed it was into which her grandmother laid her. She hardly could have told she was lying upon anything. She felt nothing but softness. The old lady laid down for bed as well. The princess asked, "Why don't you put out your moon?" "That never goes out, night or day," she answered. "In the darkest night, if any of my pigeons are out on a message, they always see my moon and know where to fly to. But if somebody besides the pigeons were to see it, somebody about the house, I mean, they would come to look what it was and find you." "The better for them, then," said the old lady. "But it does not happen about 5 times in 100 years that anyone does see it. The greater part of those who do take it for a meteor wink their eyes and forget it again. Besides, nobody could find the room except I pleased. Besides, again, I will tell you a secret. If that light were to go out, you would fancy yourself lying in a bare garret on a heap of old straw, and would not see one of the pleasant things round about you all the time. I hope it will never go out," said the princess. "I hope not, but it is time we both went to sleep. Shall I take you in my arms?" The little princess nestled close up to the old lady, who took her in both her arms and held her close to her chest. "Oh dear, this is so nice," said the princess. "I didn't know anything in the world could be so comfortable. I should like to lie here forever." "You may if you will," said the old lady. "But I must put you to one trial, not a very hard one, I hope. This night week You must come back to me. If you don't, I do not know when you may find me again, and you will soon want me very much. Oh, please don't let me forget. You shall not forget. The only question is whether you will believe I am anywhere, whether you will believe I am anything but a dream. You may be sure I will do all I can to help you to come, but it will rest with yourself after all. On the night of next Friday, you must come to me. Mind now. I will try, said the princess. Then, good night, said the old lady, and kissed the forehead which lay on her chest. In a moment more, the little princess was dreaming in the midst of the loveliest dreams of summer seas and moonlight and mossy springs and great murmuring trees and beds of wildflowers with such aromas as she had never smelled before. But, after all, no dream could be more lovely than what she had left behind when she fell asleep. In the morning, she found herself in her own bed. There was no handkerchief or anything else on her hand. Only a sweet scent lingered about. The swelling had all gone down. The prick of the pin had vanished. In fact, her hand was perfectly well. Chapter 12. A short chapter about Curdie. Curdie spent many nights in the mine. His father and he had taken Mrs. Peterson into the secret, for they knew Mother could hold her tongue, which was more than could be said of all the miners' wives. But Curdie did not tell her that every night he spent in the mine, part of it went in earning a new red petticoat for her. Mrs. Peterson was such a nice, good mother. All mothers are nice and good, more or less. But Mrs. Peterson was nice and good all more and no less. She made and kept a little heaven in that poor cottage on the hillside for her husband and son to go home to out of the low and rather dreary earth in which they worked. I doubt if the princess was very much happier, even in the arms of her huge great-grandmother, than Peter and Curdie were in the arms of Mrs. Peterson. True, her hands were hard and chapped and large, but it was with work for them, and therefore, in the sight of the angels, her hands were so much the more beautiful. And if Curdie worked hard to get her a petticoat, she worked hard every day to get him comforts which he would have missed much more than she would a new petticoat, even in winter. Not that she and Curdie ever thought of how much they worked for each other. That would have spoiled everything. When left alone in the mine, Curdie always worked for an hour or two extra, following the lode which, according to Clump, would lead at last into the deserted habitation. After that, he would set out on an expedition. In order to manage this, or rather the return from it, better than the first time, he had bought a huge ball of fine string, having learned the trick from Hop-o'-my-Thumb, whose history his mother had often told him. Not that Hop-o'-my-Thumb had ever used a ball of string. I should be sorry to be supposed so far out in my classics, but the principle was the same as that of the pebbles. The end of this string he fastened to his pickaxe, which figured no bad anchor, and then, with the ball in his hand, unrolling it as he went, set out in the dark through the natural gangs of the goblins' territory. The first night or two, he came upon nothing worth remembering, saw only a little of the home life of the cobs in the various caves they called houses, failed in coming upon anything to cast light upon the foregoing design, which kept the inundation for the present in the background. But at length, I think on the third or fourth night, he found, partly guided by the noise of their implements, a company of evidently the best sappers and miners amongst them, hard at work. What were they about? It could not well be the inundation, seeing that had in the meantime been postponed to something else. Then, what was it? He lurked and watched, and every now and then, in the greatest risk of being detected, but without success, he had again and again to retreat in haste, a proceeding rendered the more difficult that he had to gather up his string as he returned upon its course. It was not that he was afraid of the goblins, but that he was afraid of their finding out that they were watched, which might have prevented the discovering at which he aimed. Sometimes his haste had to be such that when he reached home towards morning, his string, for lack of time to wind it up as he dodged the cobs, would be in what seemed most hopeless entanglement. But after a good sleep, though a short one, he always found his mother had got it right again. There it was, wound in a most respectable ball, ready for use the moment he should want it. "I can't think how you do it, Mother," he said. "I follow the thread," she would answer, "just as you do in the mine." She never had more to say about it, but the less clever she was with her words, the more clever she was with her hands. And the less his mother said, the more Curdie believed she had to say. But still, he had made no discovery as to what the goblin miners were about.